So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen. I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute, man. So listen, last year, around this time last year, I took Queen on a surprise birthday trip to the cabins, right? And we stayed inside majority of the time. You know what I mean? We never really left the cabin. We just stayed in. The weather was good. We just stayed inside, right? This year, I'm like, all right, we got to go back to the cabins because we enjoyed. I mean, when I talk about, and I didn't think I could have that much fun at the cabin. We enjoyed ourselves, thoroughly enjoyed. We went with a group of people, right? So I'm like, this year, but we got to go out and we got to explore a little bit. But y'all know how hesitant I am about getting out in these woods, right? So what better way to educate myself than start watching some like wilderness videos, right? And I came right across mysteries discovered in the wilderness. Right? Came across this video. Now, I don't know if this is going to deter me or not, but we're going to see what happens. That's all I'm going to say. We'll see what happens. So, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, join the family, and here goes nothing.
Despite technological advances, there are still corners of the world that we haven't explored at all, and out in the wild, there are mysteries just waiting to be discovered. From monsters hiding in the woods to ancient cities lost in the Amazon rainforest, get ready to venture into the wilderness and explore some mysterious discoveries that will blow your mind, or keep you up at night. Anjikuni Lake.
Wow.
Ackee, maple syrup, good manners, and poutine. God, I love...
Can't go wrong with maple syrup at all. Like, you just can't go. Whoever created maple syrup, bro, you're like a god to me.
Canada. When you're busy drooling over fries and gravy, it's easy to forget that much of Canada is this. Miles and miles of deadly frozen wilderness. And when you're alone in the tundra, it's easy to go a little crazy. And back in 1930, a man called Joe LaBelle stumbled across something that made him think he was losing his mind. Joe was a fur trapper, hired to explore the wilderness, gather animal pelts, and grow an impressive beard. Joe was out trapping around Anjikuni Lake in Nunavut, Canada's northernmost territory. Nunavut is Canada's largest territory, but it's also the least populated, with only 39,000 people occupying the area's harsh and deadly climate. While out searching for pelts, Joe came across a small Inuit camp by the water. The campfires were still smoldering and pots of stew sat on top of the flames. It was seemingly dinner time at the Anjikuni camp, yet when Joe searched the settlement, there was nobody around. He found empty tents, half-eaten bowls of food, and an unfinished shirt, needles still poking out of the fabric. The fires and food meant the villagers...
I don't know much, but that seems to me like a bunch of people had to leave abruptly. You know what I'm saying? So maybe you need to follow suit there, buddy.
Needles still poking out of the fabric. The fires and food meant the villagers had been there recently, but there were no footprints in the snow leaving the camp. They had all vanished. As Joe continued to explore, he was left in utter disbelief as he discovered that every grave in the settlement had been opened and emptied, the headstones neatly stacked beside the graves. Something very sinister had clearly happened at Anjikuni Lake. Horrified, Joe fled across the wilderness, trekking over ice and snow to reach the closest civilization. He persuaded the local police to set off in search of the villagers, but they were never found, their fate remaining a mystery to this day. It's possible that the villagers left willingly, their footprints simply covered by snowfall, but then snowfall would have surely dampened the campfires too. And what about the graves? With so many questions unanswered, you can certainly forgive Joe LaBelle for not wanting to hang around Anjikuni, alone in the wilderness for long.
Like I said, I don't know I guess you could take street smarts into the woods a little bit, because that was a definitely telltale sign to me that they either had to leave abruptly and something may be wrong here. I need to go. And he sounded like he got up out of there quick.
Miss Therese. If you ever find yourself in the middle of the crooked forest in Poland, you might just find out how the forest got its name. A grove of pine trees with a very unnatural bend at their base. Nobody knows for sure why the trees have grown like this, and spookily, most of the trees bend directly north, almost like they're pointing at something. Scientists have determined that the trees were planted in the 1930s, and they were 7 to 10 years old when a mysterious force caused their trunks to curve. Some folks theorize the area has a uniquely strong gravitational field, pulling the trunks down to the ground. But there's no scientific evidence for this, and the phenomenon hasn't been observed anywhere else on Earth. Others believe tanks in World War II drove over the trees when they were saplings, bending them out of shape, only for them to continue growing skyward. And of course, others believe the anomaly can only be the result of aliens. I'm not sure why aliens would want to bend a bunch of trees in Poland though, unless it's a case of extraterrestrial arts and crafts. Interestingly, there are cases of humans bending trees on purpose. Native American tribes used to bend trail trees to mark their roads and paths, like an old version of a sign above the highway. The trees were bent at their base before growing straight upwards toward the sun, resulting in their distinctive shape. So some theorize that the drunken trees in Poland's crooked forest could likewise be man-made. Curved wood used to be an important material for building ships, and the crooked forest could have been used to give shipbuilders a supply of curved wood without having to bend it after harvesting. Then again, if the trees were grown to build boats, why were they never cut down? Let me know what you think down in the comments.
That's crazy.
Lloyon. Bigfoot. Chupacabra. The abominable snowman. The wilderness is a hotbed for tales of cryptids and creatures. The wilderness around a small Swiss village called Males is no different, having been plagued by reports of a cryptid for years, known as Le Lloyon. Eerie local reports describe the entity as a tall, imposing, human-like figure, occasionally glimpsed moving throughout the world in a boiler suit, a dark cloak, an old-fashioned gas mask, and no real direction or purpose. There's even footage online of people claiming to capture the monster, although the fake-looking camcorder effect and shaky cinematography makes me think it's probably just a group of kids trying to shoot their own low-budget horror film. Regardless, when he allegedly appears, Le Lloyon always wears the same outfit, although he was once spotted clutching a bouquet of flowers. What a romantic. Mrs. Lloyon is a lucky lady. Police have searched for Lloyon for years, but they've never been able to find him, the monster only appearing to unsuspecting walkers deep in the woods. More cynical people suspect that Le Lloyon is just a guy who likes dressing up and going for long walks. But as the stories of Le Lloyon turn from fact to legend, some locals believe that underneath that boiler suit, the monster might not be human at all. What do you think? Is Le Lloyon just a guy trying to get his daily 10,000 steps, or is an—
Yeah, me and Queen might be staying inside again. That's what I'm gathering. That's what I'm thinking.
alien monster hiding behind that mask? Let me know down in the comments. Ancient aliens? Cave paintings can give us an amazing insight into the lives of our ancestors, usually depicting handprints, animals, and people hunting. Pretty standard caveman stuff. Sometimes, however, a cave painting will come along that's more puzzling. Pictures of strange shapes, mutant animals, and humanoid figures. While perplexing works of prehistoric art like these may be the result of ancestors with overactive imaginations, get your tinfoil hats ready because some equally imaginative tourists of the modern age believe these paintings are proof of extraterrestrials visiting the ancient Earth.
That's the thing though. Your imagination somewhat comes, not all of it, somewhat comes from things you've seen. So you imagine more of it, or you take that what you've seen and your imagination makes it grand. You know what I mean? It somewhat comes from that. So they had to see something that gave off that led to an even bigger imagination of what could be. So based on what I'm seeing is everything we've been watching, they're among us, bro. They're here.
One type of cave art that's frequently cited by conspiracy theorists are depictions of the Wanjina in Australia.
Exactly.
The Wanjina are a sacred part of Aboriginal culture, cloud and rain spirits that, in Aboriginal mythology, were instrumental in sculpting the Australian landscape and its inhabitants. Ancient paintings of the Wanjina are found around Kimberley, a wild, isolated part of Australia's coastline. And legends state that these powerful spirits had the ability to lightning strike people that broke the law, as well as transform themselves into clouds and disappear into the sky. Suggestions that the Wanjina were advanced, spacefaring aliens have been criticized for undermining the Aboriginals' important cultural beliefs. But depictions of the Wanjina are strikingly similar to the appearances of aliens in modern media.
Now, some people will give pushback and say, oh, well, you know, a lot of different tribes and things wore masks. So it could have been depictions of the tribes wearing masks and different things like that according to their culture. Cool, get that too. You know what I'm saying? It could be, you can make cases either way, but I'm just saying, stop trying to rule out the other one.
Of course, ancient myths and folklore aren't always meant to be taken literally, and the Wanjina were likely using metaphorical interpretations of natural forces like thunderstorms, lightning strikes, and floods. Still, these conspiracy theories are spurred on by other pieces of cave art found all over the world. Cave markings found in Chhattisgarh, India, were near identical to modern depictions of bulbous-headed aliens. And in the US, the head of Sinbad is sometimes used as an example of Native American art that depicts an alien figure. This evidence should, of course, be taken with a pinch of salt, as the artworks could easily be abstract depictions of humans. I mean, even when modern folks, me in particular, try to draw humans, it rarely...
Oh yeah, I'm still stick figure person. I mean, that whole drawing talent skipped my generation.
Works out photorealistically. Before you say anything, yes, I am deeply ashamed of my artistic skills. Impossible colors. We've already explored some of the terrifying things that people have found while hiking, but not all mysteries have to be scary. In 2018, a Redditor went for a walk in the woods with their girlfriend and found something that brightened up their day. A body of water in the swamp that appeared to be filled to the brim with rainbows. Some commenters thought the colors might have been the result of a giant, colorful bath bomb or an oil spill. Thankfully, the explanation's a bit more natural. As the cones on the swamp's cypress trees fall down, their natural oils gather atop the water, refracting light, which is then reflected back to the eye by the water below, shifting the light's wavelength to the multicolored spectacle you see. The rainbow waters are totally safe to swim in. I still wouldn't risk it though.
I wouldn't swim or mess around and drink that. You know what I mean? Who talk about a trip?
Hole in the woods. Sometimes, mysteries discovered in the wilderness totally defy natural explanations. And that's why users on Twitter were left scratching their heads when this image started to circulate online. Internet sleuth...
That's gotta be a portal. Yeah, you can't convince me otherwise. That gotta be a portal to somewhere. You step through there, you're gonna be on another planet, bro.
This desperately tried to figure out what might have caused the hole. And one Twitter user ominously stated, "The hole isn't scary. I'm afraid of what created it." However, an explanation eventually came, and the hole wasn't a portal to Narnia or the work of a monster with a passion for pruning hedges. It was actually created by Antti Leitinen, a Swedish visual artist who largely works with nature. It was part of a project called Broken Landscape that involved cutting segments out of trees to create eerie, unnatural scenes. Antti doesn't just work in the woods, though. His other works include a painting made out of his own sweat and attempting to move an entire lake with just 2 buckets. Both works of art had similar results.
Wait, what? Wait, I'm gonna empty it. Yo, he's got way too much time on his hands. But that's something I definitely sit around. If he do a live stream, put it up on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever, Instagram, I'd sit there and watch him try to drain that pond with 2 buckets. I'd probably get a kick out of it too. That's must-see TV.
Puddles, and not a whole lot more. Wilderness wanderer.
But wouldn't that be like, and I know I'm dragging, wouldn't that be like counterintuitive? Because wouldn't the water eventually kind of slide back down, some of it into the lake once it gets to stay? I don't know. See, I'm already thinking about it too much.
Police officer Helenis Vidigal must have seen lots of terrifying things while patrolling around Brazil's stretch of the Amazon rainforest, which she was assigned to in the 2010s. But the strangest thing she ever saw wasn't a venomous snake or a jaguar. It was a skinny, barefoot Canadian man walking down a dirt road headed towards the depths of the jungle. When she approached the man, she discovered he didn't have a passport and he didn't speak a word of Portuguese or Spanish. She had no idea how he got there. Meanwhile, in Toronto, Stefan Pilippa was going about his life, his days plagued by thoughts of his brother Anton, who had gone missing 5 years before in 2012.
I think we just heard about this story. That's crazy. It was on like a solve the mystery type thing.
His disappearance had left Stefan with so many questions. Where had Anton gone? Why had he left? And was he even still alive? All of those questions were answered when Stefan received a call from a certain Brazilian police officer. It turns out that Anton had traveled over 6,000 miles and 10 different countries on his journey to South America. Nobody knows how he crossed borders without a passport, and he undertook much of the journey barefoot, carrying little more than the clothes on his back. Now, my dating profile says I like long, romantic walks, but that's just insane. So, what inspired the walk? Well, Anton wanted to visit the National Library of Buenos Aires in Argentina, and with a history of mental illness, it seemed Anton became totally consumed by the idea of heading there on foot at all costs. After several years of traveling, Anton finally made it to his destination, only to be turned away from the library because he didn't have an ID. So he turned around and began his long journey home, the journey in which he'd eventually encounter Officer Vidigal, leading him to be reunited with his brother without having to walk the full 2 continents. Hopefully before Anton departs on his next adventure, he'll leave a note.
I bet he wished she showed up on the way down too. Goodness gracious.
Mystery line. Do you ever feel like your eyes are playing tricks on you?
Yes.
Well, let me introduce you to this spot in Tennessee, a real-life optical illusion. The woodland looks like it's been photoshopped, with a perfect line across the trees reaching as far as the eye can see. Believe it or not, this isn't edited at all, and the trees haven't been painted by our friend Antti Laitinen. Instead, this location, known as the Sinking Pond, is a vernal pool, a body of water that fills up with rainfall from winter to spring and then completely dries during the summer. In the sinking pond, the trees are partially submerged for most of the year. When the pond sinks into the ground during dry season, the waterlogged bottom halves of the trees are exposed, all at the same level. I can just imagine the confused local frog that wakes up on the dry forest floor one spring morning each year, shouting to his wife, "Damn it, Florence, did you pull the plug out of the bathtub again?" Swamp ghost. In 1972, a group of Australian soldiers found a ghost deep in the swamps of Papua New Guinea. This ghost wasn't a Victorian lady in a white dress or a little girl climbing out of a TV screen. It was the remains of a World War II era airplane known as the Swamp Ghost. The machine guns were still loaded. A thermos was filled with rotten coffee.
See, that's the stuff you gotta worry about. You just heard him say it was machine guns were still loaded.
Swamp Ghost. The machine guns were still loaded. A thermos was filled with rotten coffee, and an ashtray still held the ends of half-smoked cigarette butts. The plane was oddly intact, just resting on the swamp floor. But initially, the fate of the crew was a total mystery. However, as awareness of the plane spread, the Swamp Ghost's crew were tracked down. Journalists managed to interview the plane's engineer, Clarence Lemieux, now a 90-year-old veteran living in Spokane, Washington. He revealed that before the crash, the plane ran into 3 or 4 tornadoes, had a hole shot in its right wing by Japanese warplanes, and eventually ran out of fuel, forcing the crew to ditch the plane in the middle of the jungle. To think, I get scarred over a little bit of turbulence. Incredibly, the men all survived the crash landing, trekked through the jungle for days in search for help. The men came close to death, and during their journey, 2 of them started hallucinating, exclaiming they could see an American mess hall through the trees. Luckily, the men were eventually rescued by a local tribe and escaped the jungle on canoes, but the shell of the swamp ghost was left behind, waiting to be found almost 30 years later.
Dang.
Frozen in ice.
Can you imagine that? Your crew, plane goes down. Now y'all have nothing but a hope and a prayer to try to get out of this. You got to track through the jungle. And then one of your crew or 2 of your crew members start hallucinating. So now in your mind, you're like, are we going to have to take him out? Is he going to try to come for us? Is he going to get hungry? Think he got to eat one of us? Like, imagine everything that that they went through their mind while doing, I could sit around that dude, that 90-year-old dude, and listen to him probably tell stories for days, bro. That's my kind of conversation.
Antarctica is a barren wasteland of ice and snow. It's the 5th largest continent in the world, but in the winter months, only 1,000 people live there for one main reason. It's just so cold. With temperatures as low as minus 126 degrees Fahrenheit and wind speeds
That's a no for me. Sorry. It's no for me.
up to 199 miles per hour.
Minus 126. It's a no for me.
The people who do live on Antarctica are there for scientific research, traveling across the continent to make new discoveries, and meet some baby penguins. With how desolate it seems, imagine the surprise when a group of researchers on Cape Evans came across a box of 22 undeveloped film photographs buried in a solid block of ice. The researchers quickly cleaned and developed the photographs, and what they found was amazing. It wasn't a polar bear taking a selfie, it was a set of perfectly preserved images from an Antarctic expedition over 100 years ago. Initially, they didn't know who left the photos or why, but it's now believed the photos are of the Aurora, a ship that explored the Arctic between 1914 and 1917. During their travels, the explorers' main ship sunk, leaving them stranded on the ice during a blizzard. These adventurers were then forced to paddle in lifeboats for 720 miles over a stormy ocean to reach the safety of the nearest island in South Georgia. Miraculously, their endeavor was a success, but their holiday photos were lost until 2013. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I think I'll pass on an Antarctic vacation this year.
Did you not hear me? Minus 128. No, it's a strong no for me. I'm sorry.
Blue woods. When you picture tree trunks, you probably imagine something brown or possibly white. Bright blue trees, meanwhile, might sound like something from an alien planet, but people have been discovering these unnatural-looking plants in the wilderness all over the world and sharing them online. Shared examples have included trees with blue-dashed trunks and sticks that are filled with the blue stuff. This curious coloration left people scratching their heads, but the mystery was solved when mycologists came to the rescue. Mycology is the study of fungi, and it turns out the blue branches are the result of a fungus called Terrana cerulea, also known as the cobalt crust, or velvet blue spread.
Get some of that on you. Ain't no penicillin gonna dry that up, bro. I'm telling y'all.
Sounds delicious. Although the branches might look like candy, they aren't blue raspberry flavored, though the fungi aren't particularly harmful to the trees either.
Look at it, it's all furry and stuff. Oh yeah, you get that. They gonna have to amputate.
With over 100 species capable of making woods a little bit blue, me and Terrana cerulea have something in common. I can't turn a tree blue, but I too am a fun guy. Sorry. People of the forest. To those of you that didn't turn the video off after that last pun, When going for a hike on your own, there's nothing worse than realizing that you aren't alone anymore. A shadow in the distance, a figure watching you through the trees. It's all shudder-worthy. But in a surprising number of cases, those humanoid silhouettes on your periphery may turn out to be, of all things, statues, as countless posts online have proven. One Redditor, for example, found this strange box in the woods, assuming that the object had crash-landed from outer space, though the door on the side implies a more terrestrial, albeit intricately constructed, secret forest hideout purpose. Another web user discovered this beautiful wooden archway, likely constructed by intricately bending and restricting the tree's growth, and they rightfully joked that it looked like a portal to another dimension. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether forest finds are man-made or not. One Redditor's heart sunk when they discovered this monster in the woods during a hike. People online were left scratching their heads trying to figure out whether it was a natural tree, a piece of artwork, or an actual woodland demon.
It's more artwork it looked like to me. Probably that dude who's just still trying to take them buckets and drain that lake. He probably did it. You know he got too much time on his hands.
One of the scariest woodland installations are Rob Mulholland's mirror sculptures, placed all over the Scottish wilderness. The statues reflect the woods around them, completely camouflaged until you get up close. Terrifying. The ghostly figures are intended to explore humanity's relationship with nature, but if I stumbled across one, I'd probably just explore how quickly I could run away. But I'd rather have the mirror people over for dinner than get lost in this trail in Atlanta, where people have found eerie hybrids of dolls and technology. So that's what Sid from Toy Story's up to these days. But there are yet more forest humanoids to be found around the world. These haunting wood sculptures by Nagato Iwasaki are placed in woods all over Japan. And if you travel to Deschora Park Forest in Belgium, you'll find yourself transported to a fairy tale, suddenly surrounded by wooden sculptures of trolls and giants. It turns out that these mysterious statues are the work of Thomas Dambo, an artist who creates art out of recycled wood and other discarded materials. Dambo created the sculptures to encourage people to explore nature, and he's now one of the most prominent recycling artists in the world, getting commissions to build more wooden trolls all over the globe, truly proving that one man's trash is another man's treasure. Lost City of the Monkey God. From Machu Picchu to Teotihuacan in Mexico, the discovery of ancient cities can teach us a lot about the civilizations that came before us. They're home to fascinating legends, abandoned temples, and beautiful artifacts, like this mask, found intricately carved out of the mineral serpentine inside Teotihuacan's pyramid, for use in mysterious rituals long forgotten. Deep in the Honduran jungle, though, there's a legend of a lost city so wealthy that the inhabitants used to eat their food off of plates of gold. This civilization is known by two names, La Ciudad Blanca, the White City, or the City of the Monkey God. Stories of the city have circulated since the 1500s, and several explorers have set out in search of the ruins. Some came back with bags full of treasure, while others never returned at all. In 2015, a group of
Well, count me out. Even though it's gold out there, it's a possibility you might not make it back. I'm good.
adventurers set off into the rainforest, battling through a region known for its deadly snakes, jaguars, and violent drug cartels. Against all odds, these adventurers discovered...
Am I tripping? Is that a jaguar? More like a cheetah. Maybe I'm tripping. All right, my bad.
And violent drug cartels. Against all odds, these adventurers discovered a city in the jungle, the ancient ruins of which had been overrun by vegetation. They found pyramids, temples, and sculptures. The art depicted jaguars, ancient villagers, and, as per the city's name, monkeys. Nobody knows why the city was abandoned, but a local legend says that the villagers fled after being cursed by a disease brought on by the monkey god. This was thought to be a myth, but the explorers soon started to feel unwell during their expedition.
Wow.
They discovered they had contracted a flesh-eating parasite called leishmaniasis, and were forced to flee the ancient city to get medical attention. The explorers have since stated their desire to return to the city and uncover its mysteries, but they're yet to return. However, the disease they can—
Yeah, nobody told me there was a flesh-eating something out there. Nah. So it's you possibly not make it back. You got to deal with something that's out there flesh-eating, along with the animals, snakes, and stuff that's out there that's poisonous and deadly. Nah, y'all can keep it, bro. I've been doing good this far in my life. Made it this far in my life without it. I don't need it.
Contracted could give a scientific explanation for the abandonment of the city if the parasites carried in a certain species of fly were present back when the city fell. For now, though, the jungle city remains cloaked in mystery.
I do want somebody to find. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? I definitely would like to know if it's out there, though. It's definitely intriguing.
Isle of Horrors. Up next, we have one of the strangest true crime stories of all time.
What?
A mystery featuring an isolated island, a violent criminal, and a small colony of wallabies. The setting? Loch Lomond, Scotland. I told you it was strange. Back in the 1940s, all 86 acres of the isolated Inchconachin Island in Loch Lomond were owned by the Countess of Arran, an eccentric who was once known as the fastest granny on water due to her love of speedy motorboats. This quirky countess had a love for exotic animals too, populating Inchconachin with wallabies after World War II. Today, there are around 60 wallabies living on the island, and explorers flock to its shores to snap photos of the out-of-place Australian wildlife. But not all of these visitors have good intentions. This became apparent in 2017 when a truly bizarre and slightly disturbing mystery cast a dark shadow upon the island. Visitors arrived on Inchconachin's shores to discover that a large number of the wallabies had been killed, their bodies left all over the island. The killer must have come in the night, committed the crime, and vanished, their identity remaining a mystery. While the criminal mastermind is unknown, there is a clear motive for the crime. The wallabies are technically an invasive species, their arrival altering the ecosystem and taking food away from the native capercaillie birds, driving their numbers down to dangerous levels. This angers some locals, and there have been demands that the government cull the wallabies to protect the island's ecosystem. But with no significant action taken to date, it seems some wallaby-hating vigilante took justice into their own hands. But mysterious culprit aside, invasive or not, who'd want to kill that little face? Did these mysterious discoveries make you—
See, that's why animals be the way they are towards us now, because of things like that. You know what I mean? Even though they were taken out of their habitat there, but still in all, man, you just can't just mow them down like that. But yeah, man, I think yeah, maybe this year if we go again, we might be inside again. It might be an inside job again. I don't know, man. The wilderness is just, yeah, it just ain't made for me, man. I'm trying though. I'm building up the nerve and courage to get out there. But hiking and all that type of stuff, nah, that's still not for me. You know what I mean? I'd be lost. As soon as I stepped out there, I'd be lost. You know? But anyway, y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you thought of this video. Mysteries discovered in the wilderness. All right, well, till next one, I'm gone. Peace.